So we're live on YouTube. All right, thanks for your patience, everyone. I was just making sure that the recording and the live streaming were all set up. So welcome to this month's EPSP Connects. Thank you for joining us. The purpose, more generally speaking, not just specifically about this panel, but the purpose of this series is to bring the community together to help establish connections between people who might not be able to interact with others in a different setting. And we're very happy to have you here. So I would like to thank all the EPSP Connect team members who helped plan and organize the series, reach out to potential speakers or panelists and coordinate with them, and who advertise in social media and make sure that the series information is up to date on the website. Joining me today as a co-host is Shashank Anand, who will help us with the Q&A session. Shashank, what's the plan?
Hello, everyone. Please use the Q&A feature to post your questions for this panel. And we have enabled the upvote button, so you can use it to help us prioritize the questions from the audience. And please make sure that you indicate specifically to a journal so that we can direct that question to that specific journal. And Roberto and I will be monitoring them. So for those people who are listening to our live stream on YouTube, we'll also keep an eye on it for the questions. And please post your questions as they come up. You don't need to wait till the very end.
All right, so thanks for that, Shashank. And then I'm very excited to hold this panel today to talk about this revolution in the geosciences associated with the Diamond open access way of publishing. So we have today folks from 8 different Diamond open access journals, and I have asked them to share things about their journal. That's the kind of questions that I shared with the different journals. So we'll start, and we'll go kind of just following the order of those logos. They have no order in particular. But we'll start with Volcanica. So if you can share your screen and tell us a little bit about the journal.
And you can see that okay?
Yes.
Terrific. Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me here today. So my name's Jamie. I'm editor-in-chief of Volcanica. Volcanica is a volcanology journal. So we publish research to do with kind of all of the physical aspects of volcanoes and volcanic eruptions, but also their effects on infrastructure, society, and the environment as well. So we launched in 2017. I've been editor-in-chief since then, but embedded within a larger team of editors that's between around 40 and 45 people. Over that time, we've published 13 issues, 150 articles. And we're able to do this thanks to help from the University of Strasbourg Press. So this is an institutional publishing press, and they give us a small stipend of 500 euros per year. And this covers all of our basic running costs. And we're really happy to say that we've got this kind of international reach. So the last data we have showed that people are accessing Volcanica research articles from something like 186 countries in the world, which is most of them. So that's great, because this is really something that we've pushed for, is this kind of global access to volcanic research. And we've got, well over 150,000 article downloads over that time. So people are definitely reading our research. And this translates into citations as well. There's a little graph on screen, but yeah, so some of our articles have been cited, 40, 50, or even as many as 90 times. So there's definitely, it's being used by the community as well. So I'm going to pass on to the next one and not take up any more time. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jamie. So next is Tectonica. Mo, if you can share your slide, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to talk about Tectonica. So I'm Mo Guiza, so I'm representing Tectonica here. So Tectonica is a Diamond Open Access journal, obviously, that actually publishes the research about work about tectonics and structural geology. So the idea of Tectonica started in December 2020, and I'm showing here some milestones actually and some dates. So the journal started taking shape around July 2021, and at that moment we had over 180 Slack members that were supporting us and providing ideas and feedback on what they would like Tectonica to be. And I should mention that we started as a core team of 6 people. Then in December 2021, we had the editorial team in place. It was made of 6 executive editors and 16 associate editors. And in 24th of May 2022, we were open for business and we had our platform open for submissions. So so far, we have actually 3 issues that have been published. The last one was published just like a few weeks ago. We had a total of 78 manuscripts that will submit it. 36 manuscripts have been published, and we have about like 30 manuscripts that are currently in, or like about like 25 manuscripts that are currently being handled. So it's still in the peer review process. We are supported by the University of Aberdeen, so we're not actually part of any university press, but University of Aberdeen is the institution that provides the funding to keep us running, which is actually like covers basically like around like £500 to £600 a year that we need actually like for the archival and the DOIs and the various small things that we need for our publications. In terms of number of volunteers, like I mentioned, so like we started with 6 executive editors and 16 associate editors, and we were actually like 6 members of the core team. The core team now actually is what we call the management team, and we are 5 in the management team. We have actually increased our executive editors like about a year ago. So now we have 8 executive editors, and we increased also the associate editors to 23 so far, and we are aiming to increase that number actually in the near future. In terms of like representation, we actually have our team members are from all over the world, but we're still actually like lacking some representation from, especially from African institution at the moment. So if anyone actually is listening, you're welcome actually to join our initiative. Yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you,
and
Mo.
I'll pass it.
Thank you. All right, moving on to Geomorphica. Alice?
Okay, hello everyone. So I'm here to represent Geomorphica, and we are a Diamond Open Access journal in geomorphology. We opened just a bit over 1 year ago in 2023, although, I mean, it took a couple of years to get us started before that, with also a core team of around 6 people to get the journal really started at the beginning, which progressively increased until we opened for submission. In the last year since we opened for submission, we had around 15 manuscripts which were submitted. 3 are already published completely on the website, and 1 is currently going through typesetting. And then we also have a few manuscripts which were rejected, and the rest are still going through the review process. And yeah, that's our team of volunteers. So we have around 30 volunteers, and you can see their smiley faces there with people working in different areas. That is in the steering committee as associate editor, managing editor, communications. And very recently we went through the the effort of making sure of looking at our diversity. And here that's some plots on which we're currently working. And the first two plots on the left, you can see the continent of employment and origin. And what we can see quite clearly is that a lot of us are from or working in Europe, and some in North America, a relatively good proportion from South America, but we are also massively missing people from Africa, Asia, and Oceania. So we would be very happy to get people from those countries. If you are interested in getting involved in the journal, please get in touch with us. In terms of the career stage, we have a majority of early career scientists, which I think personally is a very good thing, because that's people who usually don't get to be in the publishing landscape. So I think it's great that with Diamond Open Access Journal, they get to do that kind of work. And in terms of gender, we are slightly biased towards men compared to women. That is because we try to increase our regional diversity, and then it's very difficult to get both regional and gender diversity, as it has been noticed by other people in other journals. In terms of where we are hosted by Penn State University Libraries, and I cannot thank them enough for all the support that they have been giving us. Really, it's thanks to them that we are where we are. And we are also getting some funding and help with networking from the IAG, which is the International Association of Geomorphologists. Some of the special things that we have a triple anonymous peer review system, which I'm happy to explain if you want to know more about it. Obviously, we are completely volunteer-based, and we are very much EDI-driven. That means that equity, diversity, and inclusion are really at the heart of the journal. Yeah, that's it from me. We are open for submission, and we'll be very happy to get new volunteers or new papers, or new volunteers and papers. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Alice. Seismica next.
One sec. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Toplitsky. I'm representing Seismica this morning. Seismica launched in July 2022, and we published our first article that same year in October. Like everyone else, we're a Diamond Open Access community journal, and so far we've published about 90 articles. You can see more stats in the screen here. In addition to research articles, some of the unique things about Seismica, we publish what are called fast reports, which ensure a decision within 4 weeks and kind of fast output through the system. We also publish opinions, various types of reports, including null results, data and field deployments, and software reports. And we've had limited but important special issues over the past 2 years, one on the 2023 Turkey earthquake and another that's in process on the Cascadia subduction zone. Our team has a global reach, like some of the other journals have mentioned. We have about 55 researchers from over 20 countries. We have 5 executive editors, including myself, 14 in a management committee, a little bit of overlapping roles there with 15 people in operation teams, including media and branding and standards and copy editing. Almost 30 handling editors after a recruitment that we did to increase some numbers this summer. And we've had about 300 unique reviewers participate in our peer review process. One thing I wanted to mention before passing it on, which I think will come up later in the conversation, is our sources of support. And I've kind of separated this into formal and informal. We're supported by McGill University Library, and through them we access the OJS platform. We also have a relationship with a group called Open Collective, where we deposit any earnings we get from small donations or from our merch, which you see below, and I'm sporting here. But we also, and I think this is probably common across the board, we rely informally on a lot of other infrastructure that we're not, necessarily paying for. So we host our some of our templates and our reviewer database on GitHub, and of course, many of our authors and researchers rely on that too. We rely on Google and Google Scholar. We have a profile to kind of track our citations in Google Scholar. We also rely on Overleaf to host our LaTeX templates. And we use the Nodo to have an informal community where people can deposit their article-related data if they don't have another source for it. Hopefully, we'll chat more about this as the conversation goes on. But with that, I'll pass it to the next speaker.
Thank you, Sam. So next is the sedimentary record.
Hi, good morning. I apologize, I don't have a slide today. I'm Lizzie Trower. I'm one of 3 co-editors for the Sedimentary Record. We are a short format journal that is supported by SEPM, the Society for Sedimentary Geology. So we specialize in short format publications across the range of the soft rock geosciences. Our three co-editor team just took over in the beginning of this year. So the Sedimentary Record actually has a pretty long history. It's been around for about 21 years, and it started its lifetime as a quarterly newsletter published by SEPM, and each quarterly issue commonly had one peer-reviewed science article. And in 2020, the Society decided they wanted to start transitioning this newsletter into a Diamond Open Access journal. So for the last I think about 3 years ago is when we officially made that transition. And we had 2 co-editors who were leading that effort for the first couple of years, and we've now transitioned to our second editorial team. Our current editorial team we're based in North America and Europe. And I'd say, at least from the reviewers that I have worked with, most of our reviewers tend to be mostly North America and Europe centric as well. But obviously we would encourage and love to work with a broader group of folks. Yeah, and like I said, we're financially supported by SEPM, so that is how we're able to cover the costs of our publication platform and typesetting.
Thank you. All right, so Camille, Sedimentologica.
Thanks a lot. So yeah, I'll follow up on after Lizzie presented the journal we are also publishing in the world of sedimentology, and this is a journal that was basically created at the same time as Tectonica and Seismica in late 2020. And as there was already already a journal that was a Diamond Open Access journal in our field, we started better trying to understand what was missing and defining our journal scope, our model as well, and framing the ethics that would be behind that. So that took a bit of a year. Then we find a host, and for us it was the University of Geneva Library, who is supporting us. I think the amount they said for allowing us to work for a year was 120 euros, or roughly $150 altogether. We are working with the open journal systems, and we have a bit of a funding from the Society for Sedimentary Geology, which is helping us do a bit of communication and marketing. In 2022, we built up different groups of people all together. A steering committee was separated from the editorial board, which has 8 executive editors and 14 to 16 associate editors. And then we have a production team. So there is also an overlap with people from the steering committee there, with 6 copy editors and 4 steering committee members working all together. And we're doing our best to actually get people within our editorial board in particular, from all continents. And we can say right now that we have a gender balanced editorial board, but we're still missing a lot of people from African continent, South America, and Asia too. And we opened in November 2022, and for now, roughly 20 months of work. We have 22 papers that have been published in 2 issues, still a few in review, and we start having some citations from actually all continents. So that's a win for us. And here are the face, basically, of the people working with us at Sedimentologica.
Thanks, Camille. All right, moving on to Geodynamica.
Yes, let me share my screen. Okay, so I am Iris, and I'm representing Geodynamica today, which I hope you can see. Yes. So we are very much still in the startup phase, so we're also hoping to learn from the other journals. But yeah, we started talking last year about wanting to do this, and we've had this run up for the entire year, and we plan to launch and be open for submission in the next 6 months or so. So what we have now is a core team, as many other journals have shown. Ours is about 7 people at the moment. Actually, I can show you them. And this is the core team, and then everyone in the core team is also part of some other teams. So we have a so-called pre-launch editorial team, which isn't the final editorial team, but we're working with that team to define the editorial policies of the journal. Then we have the technical team, of course, and the media team to get the word out, who made this lovely presentation. And at the moment, well, there's 7 in the core team. In the editorial, pre-launch editorial team, there's about 10 people. We have someone in the media team working with the core team, and we plan in the next 6 months to do the full recruitment with the final editorial team and have some people on board in the technical team for typesetting and some more people in the media team as well. In terms of support, we have a relationship with the University of California and eScholarship, which is some kind of university press there. So we've just signed with them, which is very exciting. And they will provide all the platform that we will use, which is Janeway. Our current team is very European focused, which is not what we would like it to be, but we hope that in this next recruitment cycle of about, in the next 6 months, we can actually get a lot more people on board when we really put the call out for anyone to join in more regular editorial roles, perhaps. And yeah, it's Geodynamica, so it's everything to do with anything that moves within the Earth, but also planets. We want to also really connect with the planetary sciences, maybe even astronomers. And we have been talking about lots of different journal types. And one of the things that we really wanted, we'll see how successful it is some kind of peer-reviewed science communication format that can be used by secondary school teachers in order to communicate geodynamics to students with like really good illustrations and accessible information. So that's us.
Thank you. Advances in geochemistry and cosmochemistry. Mark.
Okay, yeah. And yeah, so I'm Marc Alban-Millet, so I'm coordinating editor for AGC, or Advances in Geochemistry and Cosmochemistry. So we are not yet live, but we have been gearing up for about a year now, and then we are planning to open for submission in January 2025. And really, we want to cover all bases in geochemistry and cosmochemistry. So that goes from very surface processes, climate records, organic geochemistry, aqueous geochemistry, these kind of things, to cosmochemistry. Okay, deep earth and on. So 3 article types. mainly the one thing that we will not do is high impact short papers. Okay, and this is because we have geochemical perspective letters, which is managed by the European Association of Geochemistry, which is also a diamond open access journal. So what we want to be is not competing for the same diamond open access niche. There's none, that's doesn't make sense. What we want to do is complementary to them. Okay, and we are in constant relation with them as well, constantly. All the editorial policies and guide for authors and submission templates are already on our websites. The journal will be hosted by University of Uppsala publication based in Sweden. And we are currently at our stage, so we have about 20 people so far that have been working on this for a year for developing the backbones of the journal. But we are currently recruiting our team of handling editors, so the ones that will handle the peer review process for the journals. And we are, estimating that we'll need about 25 to 30 people there. Just recruiting quite a large recruitment drive to start with. And then we have a team of copy editors so far is of 3, and we estimate that we'll need another 3 to 5 additional copy editors at the moment. Okay. Really, it's ECR's welcome. What you need, especially for handling editors, is publication expertise. That's the only thing that we require. You do not need to have prior editorial expertise for that role. But we want to have, first of all, gender balance, but also global representation. Okay, to us, it's very clear that if you want to be diamond open access and open access to everyone, then also global representation is part of the process there. So yeah, I'll just stop there and answer any questions you have about this.
Thank you. All right, so as participants can see, and as we learn from all these different journals, there's one who we should all thank, who started this along this path. So Volcanica 2017, they've been the one running longest, the most experienced. All these journals, I know they talk to each other, they communicate, they work together. And then there's been mention, of different costs associated with the journal. This panel was promoted as free, publish for free, access the literature for free. It is free for authors and readers, but what are the real costs? Some people have mentioned 150 to up to maybe 600 euros, pounds, dollars, It all sounds like running a Diamond Open Access journal costs definitely less than $1,000 a year. And I see people nodding like, yeah, we're kind of doing it for less than that. I don't know. I guess I'll ask Jamie, having, being the trailblazer, how are Diamond Open Access journals free? What does that really mean? And who pays, for those costs that authors and readers do not see?
Yeah, I think there's 2 sides to this. There's the kind of technical and infrastructure side, and the way that Volcanica addresses this is we lean really heavily on open source infrastructures like the open journal systems, which I know many of the other journals here use as well. And so that's a free platform for us to kind of or a skeleton for us to build our websites on top of, and has a lot of the kind of back-end infrastructure that we need. And we use a lot of free and open source tools in order to kind of, facilitate the review process, but also to do the production side of things. But there are costs associated with some of this. We need to assign digital object identifiers to each of our articles, and we have to pay a kind of per article cost for this. We have to pay for web hosting, so that we can keep our website live. In some cases, journals will have to pay for archiving solutions to make sure that, okay, if your website goes down, people can still access all that research. There are free methods of doing this now. But certainly for Volcanica at the start, that was one of our main expenditures, was paying for archiving costs. So that kind of covers the technical side of things. Those are really the only fundamental things you need to pay for. And in our case, we partner with this university press. They give us some money. They don't have any kind of editorial involvement at all with the journal. The other side of things is the human cost. We rely heavily on volunteers. All scholarly publishing systems rely heavily on volunteers, but typically they will outsource the production side of things. And that's often how they justify the costs of like toll access or publishing or APC-based publishing. So what we do in our case is we have our kind of our own in-house team of copy editors and typesetters that are doing these tasks on a voluntary basis as well. I think if you added up the time cost for all of those people, then yeah, there would be a cost associated with that. But certainly everyone on Volcanica is quite happy to donate their time for the kind of principle thing.
All right, so I think that does answer one of the questions in the Q&A. You know, asking if we could really run things for like $500 to $600 annually, including DOIs, typesetting, other cost considerations. And that kind of moves us to the next question I had. I don't know, I'll let any kind of journal raise their hand. And what parts of the publishing effort are already done by researchers, you know, even when we remove ourselves from this Diamond Open Access model? What do we as researchers already do? And what parts of that publishing effort could be done by non-researchers or non-experts? All right, Camille.
So I think, so clearly what we already do is reviewing. Some of us already do some editorial work. Actually more and more, and there are a lot of models, publishing models that are heavily relying on the guest editors, inviting people to actually do a lot of the work that, let's say, traditional journal used to do at one point. So this we already do. For sure, the copy editing part and the production part, putting together an article under a PDF or an HTML version, that's some extra time. And I know for us in Sedimentologica, we sort of trying to dedicate the time we used to give as a reviewer or as a publisher now to potentially being doing production in the journal, for example. That's how we've done this. We see this work in the journal, and doing it for our community is even more rewarding in a way.
All right, does anyone want to add anything, or that pretty much covers it? We have a question on the chat, so I'm going to ask all panelists if you can, you know, distract yourselves for 10 seconds and paste the link to your journal on the chat, so that people know where to find you. And if you want to share, you know, social media presence as well, just, you know, bombard us with links on the chat. All right, so there's another question in the Q&A which relates to one that I had. And it's about scalability. You know, we're talking about the human cost that Jamie mentioned, you know, the volunteer time. So how does this model handle growth? How does it scale up? Do you, or you know, maybe 2 or 3 journals can share about this. Have you reached capacity? What have you done when you did so? Is there a limit to the number of submissions you can handle? Sam?
Yeah, Seismica had a working group this summer that looked at our capacity and sustainable growth. And right now we feel like we're kind of matched where we can be with the level of submissions we have, about sort of 5-ish per week, I think. One of our bottlenecks is the copy editing, not because they're slow, but we have a certain number of people and we pride ourselves on having domain experts doing that piece of it. And I think our authors appreciate that too. but there's kind of only so much time. They have done some recruitment, but that's probably one of the things that we would need to have more people doing. But what we found is that when you engage volunteers, you want people to have the right amount of work to keep them engaged, but not too much that it's too much for a volunteer, and not so little that people kind of forget what to do if they're not handling enough papers or doing enough copy editing. And I'm sure all of you have a similar problem, or not problem, but a consideration where we kind of have ebbs and flows throughout the year. So we have certain busy times right ahead or right after our major conferences. We have been intentional about closing Seismica for 2 weeks over the winter holidays. So then there's a bit of a backlog after, and there's not really a way to smooth out that flow. But yeah, at the moment, at this sort of 50 papers a year, we feel pretty sustainable, but it isn't quite, what you see the big paid journals doing. So yeah, I don't know. For us, it feels like it's the standards and copy editing piece that is potentially the limiter, but also such a good resource and so valuable in the work they do as domain experts.
Thank you. Any other journal want to add something to that, scaling, growth question? The second, oh, right, Mo, go ahead.
Yeah, just I would like to add just a small thing. I mean, in terms of scaling, I think one of the things that, in my mind at least, and a lot of people actually involved in Tectonica actually had on their mind, is the fact that Diamond Open Access Journal and the model that most of the journals actually are currently using, it's only sustainable actually if we remain actually like a small community-led journal. So in that sense, and what's encouraging here is to see actually that there are actually like so many initiatives actually that started within the earth science, because that's the only way actually like to keep Diamond Open Access journals sustainable, is actually like to have as many Diamond Open Access journal running, actually taking care of their own communities. And that way actually we share the workload over the entire community within the field of earth sciences. And because otherwise actually it's not going to be sustainable, because like Minnie actually has mentioned, like the big component and the big workload in publishing, at least in our models, is the production side, and that production side is time consuming. And yeah, I mean, like we can't run it actually at large scale if we want to, unless actually we have the funds and the means to outsource it, like the classical journals actually do. So like having as many Diamond Open Access journal, as many initiatives starting actually is in a way is something that can actually like make this initiative sustainable on the long term.
All right, and there's a second part to this question posted in the Q&A saying, if there are any thoughts on how to make this scalable across not just your own journal, but it says thousands of academic journals. That a library dean or a society might be willing to support one title, but how do we facilitate a broader shift? I think, Mo mentions that we got to divide and conquer, but that kind of constrains you to, smaller communities. I don't know if that, suggests that unless all that, back network is there to support it, we might not be able to scale it up to thousands of journals. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts along those lines. Yeah, Jamie?
Yeah, I think there's although I agree that having this kind of federated network of smaller journals is really good. It's like a good way of kind of enhancing the open access landscape. It goes hand in hand with a lot of redundant effort, right? So like everyone here has had to figure out how to like use and develop their OJS based website. They've all had to train editors in a certain way. They've all had to develop their own journal templates and kind of production pipelines and so on. And so there's a lot there there's an element of reinventing the wheel time and time again. So I think having strong links between the journals is really, really important, because that way we can share knowledge and actually build efficiencies into the broader federated system. There's probably a really big role for kind of scholarly societies and libraries in that as well, because they're kind of, they're involved with the research communities. They have some element of, they have some funding. They're kind of static in a way that a lot of the early career-based researcher-led volunteer effort is not. So yeah, I think partnering with libraries and also larger initiatives like the Free Journal Network or OASPA, which is the Open Access Scholarly Publishers Society, these kind of larger initiatives could help lessen the burden on each individual effort.
All right, Camille, you seem to want to add something.
Yes, I agree with Jamie and what Mo said also before, but there is also a model where there is no division at all, and that's just one big publication platform. And for example, I know that the European Union is already going in this direction with putting up a platform for people that have actually money coming from the European Union Research Council. I think Open Research Europe is the name for it. And you don't have disciplines anymore overall. It's just a bit or it could be just keywords. And that's just a global political effort to actually put this together. So it can be done at the level of the European Union. Maybe there is a world where that could be also done at the level of the United Nations in a far future. So that could also be a way of doing it in a way. Very different from what we do or see already, but a potential option.
And as a follow-up to that, are they encouraging, what kind of open access are they encouraging or hoping to achieve? And I ask this because I know that the US has recently kind of started mandating that every, government-funded or publicly funded research has to be open access. But they're okay with preprints. So, that doesn't help this model because they're happy with, just the published article in any server as a postprint, but not necessarily, they're not encouraging or supporting diamond open access initiatives. Do you think that there will be that shift, and do you expect it from that European thing that's coming up, that they will kind of push diamond open access?
At the European scale, I'm not sure exactly. There's very strong lobbying from different companies based in Europe. I could mention, for example, Elsevier has a good weight in the political discussions. I know at the Swiss level, there is already a push towards more diamond open access. They've already restrained people from publishing on special issue journals. So it's already saying no to one specific kind of open access. So there is a political will in these at different levels, I would say, but that's also the complexity. Money is coming from different areas. It could be at the national scale, it could be at the continental scale for the European Union, for example. So there are a lot of powers at play. I don't know if I'm answering the question.
Okay, yeah. No, thanks. There's a lot of uncertainty, I guess, in what this initiatives might bring. All right, so these journals do pretty much the same that the journals people were more familiar with, so-called, I can call them traditional journals do, you produce or you mint DOIs, the publications appear in Google Scholar, Crossref. Is there any difference, or is it all the same? Can authors, readers expect the same from these journals as they learn to expect from other journals? Sam?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we have done differently at Seismica. Jaime Converse is on the call, and he is one of the leads of our media and branding team, and they have done just an amazing effort on different social media platforms since Twitter imploded, getting the word out, doing social media outreach for each paper, and really investing in getting the word out for each paper that we publish, which I think is really unique. And then on the publication side itself, we make a point of showing everyone who's contributed to the publication of a given paper. So not just authors, but we have editors listed, we have copy editors. So all the volunteer effort is transparent. We also have public peer review. So it's an option it can still be anonymous, but the peer review is public. So it's a part of our effort to make the whole process transparent and more inclusive and ideally more kind, so that if you're willing to, you have to be willing to stand by your words. You can be anonymous, but the words themselves should be kind and productive and critical, but yet, I guess empowering for authors. So all of that is public. And I think it does sort of highlight all of the effort involved by everyone by acknowledging that and listing that publicly on the website. So I feel like that's a difference as well. I think another thing we're trying to do, which is a challenge at our scale, and maybe others have found this, is that there are these new mandates globally that we're not just opening our papers and our articles, but we're sharing data and we're sharing code. And I think that piece is a little challenging with our platforms because OJS is sort of limited in what it can do. So we're sort of relying on researchers and whatever sort of outside platforms they have to host their data. So we're checking to see that they have shared their data, but there's not really much we can do beyond that. I mentioned that Zenodo community, so there's somewhere for people to put it, but for the most part, they're sharing it elsewhere. And it's sort of an additional task that it's kind of like outside of the workflow. So I think that is happening in paid journals, dealing with data and code, but yeah, I feel like we have a more hands-on approach, a more transparent approach. And I don't know, my sense is we were able to run a survey of authors and editors this past winter, and overall people do feel like our approach is more transparent, that it's more respectful, that even it's a bit faster, and that people feel like a little more connected and have more of a community feel at the end of it. So it feels like we're making an impression that way.
Any thoughts, I guess, as we get closer to the hour? Any thoughts on, what additional, that maybe hasn't been mentioned, what Diamond Open Access journals offer? Sam has given some nice examples from Seismica. What do they bring to the table? I think there was an interesting thing mentioned before. We are not competing. We're offering an alternative, is the message. So any, closing remarks from the panelists? Well, Alice. Well, let's do Alice first.
Okay, thanks. Now, I just wanted to add a couple of things as well. Building up on what Sam was saying, we also do at Geomorphica the open review and other things like that. Because we are really from the community, it is not just one editor-in-chief with their team and who is working with the publisher. It's the whole journal which is being built by the community. I think maybe we're a bit more aware of what's happening in the world. So and how the world is changing to really capture notions of diversity and EDI in general. So now what we decided is, for example, to implement that it is mandatory to include land acknowledgement in the paper. And in case there is no land acknowledgement necessary, then it still needs to be there and needs to be said explicitly. And I think for me, that's just one of the little thing which shows that we are maybe a bit closer to the people who are actually publishing within the journals, and that maybe we can make a difference as well. We can help building a more inclusive, not just publishing world, but just scientific community overall. And maybe not just scientific, but the whole world will be more inclusive. Who knows? Yeah.
Thanks, Alice. I don't know, Mo, if you want to say something before. A thought just came through, and one of the things that hasn't been mentioned is, my understanding is all of these journals, in addition to being free for authors, readers, authors keep the copyright, right? That continues to belong to the authors, not to a publishing agency. It's okay. All right, so everyone's nodding. So that's also a good thing about these journals for those in the audience. So any other closing remarks? What does Diamond Open Access bring to the publishing landscape as an alternative? Mo?
Yeah, just follow up on what Alice actually said. Actually, is basically the point that I wanted to make initially, is that the fact that most of these initiatives, Diamond Open Access initiatives, actually started from the idea actually to bring publishing back into the community actually, and because you look at the publishing landscape and the classical publishers, or traditional publishers, they are basically took publishing actually and research out of the community actually, and were set actually as this alien entity actually outside of research and research institutions. And that's the frustration actually that led to set up these Diamond Open Access journals. And that's in itself actually is something that's unique, in the sense that we're bringing back publishing into the researchers and into academia, and basically academics actually and researchers can influence that process themselves. So we basically actually run as a community, and we want the community to be involved in all those initiatives, and we basically chase the community to get involved, because they can influence and steer those initiatives the way they want. So, and that in itself, I think it's something that's unique, and it's good actually that to try to bring that publishing scene and landscape back where it belongs, because everything actually that's done within the publishing within that publishing landscape is done by the researchers, except production, which was being outsourced. But we proved that if actually that aspect also can be actually brought, and like Sam mentioned, that if you do the production actually by people that are researchers and know what they are the research that they are working on, that make that whole production process actually more human and more productive and more efficient in a way.
All right, thanks. Maybe one more before we close it up. The two journals maybe they're about to launch. Anything they'd like to,
Yeah, I mean, I second absolutely what Mohammed has just said, and the only thing I would add to that is that we are already lending our credibility to the traditional journals. That's how they publish, right? That's how they work. It's because of people that are working for them. Okay, so we can do the work as a community. It would, that's the thing. We do not compromise on standards by doing this. So just to, one of the questions by Corey Wetherington, about how prevalent the bias was against OA journal in the community. Our circularity is changing, and that bias is becoming less and less important and prevalent in the community. And simply because people are aware, they do see that there is a lot of work that is going in the traditional journals and a lot of money going into them out of the research system into the publisher's hands. And it's all based on our own credibility as scientists. So yeah, we can do it, ourselves. There's a problem with scalability that's been well addressed here, but we can still provide alternatives that are free and more accessible for everyone.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Panelists, those in the audience. Before you go, Shashank, what do we have in store for next month?
Yeah, thanks first of all everyone for joining and also the panelists. I really enjoyed it personally. For the next month, we have a science talk by Catherine Russell, and she'll be looking at the interactions between plastic particles and sediment grains. So yeah, it was nice having you all here today, and we look forward to see you next month.
All right. Thank you, everyone.